Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will, where we share international insight, perspectives, and levity on things such as leadership and mindset on Monday Mindset, travel and the travel business on Wanderlust Wednesday, and sports on Fanatic Friday. Please make sure you subscribe, share, and follow. Spread the word, winners, for others. And thanks for those of you who continue to share your feedback and give us different ideas. Really appreciate it, and we continue to incorporate these into the episodes. So thank you very much. And again, just want to thank, we are sponsored today by Nick Menard and Associates with Dream Vacations. Thank you, Nick Menard.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. Hi, winners.
Hello, and happy Monday, Nick.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, here we go. Monday Mindset. Let's rock and roll. So we have an exciting show to share with you today, and it's going to incorporate something that fits apropos with what we call today with Monday Mindset. And basically, to summarize it, we'll call it on groundless feet. We'll expand upon that. So, a short synopsis is many times the worst enemy we face is not external, it's between our ears. And we think and project and worry about things that most of the time never come to pass. And if we had just taken action instead of being inactive because we were worried about certain things, we would have got further along. But I don't want to go too deep into it because we got a whole episode to talk about it. But Nick, any high-level summary thoughts you want to share before we jump into our segment?
Yes, this is typical, a subject where you can use it in your personal life a lot. How many times did you have any kind of situation with your significant other where you think the worst? And I'm guilty of it as well. You think that the worst will happen when this or this is going on, and you project it so many, negative thoughts, fears, or worry. And at the end of the day, none of it, 95% of what you think never happened. And it caused a lot of damage in your relationships. It's the same in the business world. When you are going into a promotion for something, what's next for you? You work on an individual development plan, but you have all those worry, all those. You look at all things that could go wrong instead of focusing on the end goal and figure it out along the way how to navigate those challenges. Mm-hmm. So stop thinking about everything could go wrong, because majority will not even happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things that you brought to mind when you were saying that for me was sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times I think people suffer in silence, and they suffer from imposter syndrome. They think they're not good enough. They think somebody is so much more better than really what that delta is not as big as they think, mm-hmm. between this person that they admire and where they're at. And all of us deal with insecurities at times. All of us have some degree of imposter syndrome at times when we're thinking about advancing or doing something we haven't done before, or a new opportunity. And it's just more often than not, it's kind of like fool's gold. It's just not really, it doesn't have any value. And it actually holds back from you reaching that mm-hmm. gold in the stream and panning for that. But before we go further, we have quotes and quips. All right. So here we go. And both are sourced today. So
there we go.
Yeah, very, very good about that. So the first one is a quote, and it's from Seneca. Seneca is an ancient philosopher, and I will actually talk a little bit more about Seneca later in this episode. But the quote from Seneca is, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Short and concise, what I tried to explain for 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Seneca. Yeah. But we got 20 to 30 minutes to fill. So,
It's going to be a short episode, guys. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, peace. Yeah. And the next one is a quip from somebody who is famous for quips, Mark Twain, who had so many. But the quip is, "I have had many troubles in my life, most of which never happened.
Again, totally in alignment with what we discussed the first 4 minutes of this episode. So yeah, very straightforward, short, straight to the point. Love it.
Yeah.
And I agree 100% because it's the truth, and it's in everywhere in life you can find those situations.
Yeah. And, we were talking before we started recording real quickly about, hey, what are some examples? And I had a
Mhm.
recent example that I wanted to share. I'll keep it in confidence as far as the person's name, of course. But I had this person call me up, and they were so concerned about like what people might think if she took a certain action, and um, you know, could she really do this certain thing? And I cited with her what something I actually put in a lot of my end of year reviews for people. Um, and some of them have seen it, multiple years in a row working with me. But going back to Seneca, there's Seneca wrote a series of letters, and there were letters that he penned and would write to people, his students or friends or colleagues. And there's letter 13 of Seneca's series of letters called On Groundless Fears. I actually was made aware of this from a Tim Ferriss podcast. So, Tim Ferriss, I know we both
Mhm.
really enjoy his work, and um, not only his books, but his podcasts. And he found somebody to actually read the letters, which brought him to life. So, anyway, on one of his podcasts, he had this person read Seneca's letter 13. And I mean, I have no idea what Seneca sounded like in real life, but I kind of imagine he probably sounded
Mhm.
kind of like this guy. Anyway, what On Groundless Fears basically is, and you can Google it. You can find Tim Ferriss's podcast and listen to it. It's about a 7 to 8 minute listen. And I actually have it as a calendar reminder for me every quarter to remind me to read it. But On Groundless Fears is basically talking about like those quotes and quips we just shared. Oftentimes we project or worry or fret about things that never come to pass. And if we instead just focused on taking action and not necessarily worry about some of those things, you'd have a lot greater success versus being almost paralyzed from taking action because you're worrying about, well, this could go wrong, or maybe I'm not good enough here, things like that. And it's actually inhibiting their own personal progress. And that's why you see people. And one of the more frustrating things for me in leadership is when you see somebody with an immense amount of talent and they never realize it because everything in between their ears is getting in the way. And
Mm.
it's a sad thing. But anyway, I cited that letter and talked about that and gave some mentorship advice about here's a few actions to consider taking. And then I heard today from her, and she took those actions and everything came out perfect, exactly how she wanted. And I'm
Wow.
like, there you go. You just got to take that step forward. But
Yep.
yeah.
That's what I call the 1% push.
Yeah,
So
that's
what you
right.
did is literally giving that little push that it's so little, it's just one or two advice, like guiding the person from A to Z, like just showing her the way.
Hmm.
And she just did it and realized, oh my God, that was painless,
Yeah.
and now I am where I wanted to be. So we are just there as leaders. Don't think that you need to do a huge amount of work to help your team, your region, your organization in order to succeed. You literally, most of the time, just need to guide the person. And when you have people who have an open mind and coachability, you will mostly than not, you will guide them direction that's needed for them to go where they want to be. Because we usually know what is lacking or what they need to do, but we don't want to tell them because
Hmm.
we want them to figure it out themselves so they can get accountable.
Hmm.
So I love that. Something I try to relate in something different. So in the travel business, I had someone contacting me. It was like 4 or 5 months ago for a first trip in Europe, and she wanted to go with her husband and her two kids. First time in Europe, they wanted to do Italy. So I built an itinerary with a tour, I mean everything included for Italy for 7 nights. She was one of the most
Uh-oh.
stressful clients that I have had. But I understand because when you you never left a country, the continent, to go to another one, it can be challenging. And it's
Mhm.
someone who is very, as she told me, she's very control freak.
Mm.
And here she let me handle the whole trip for her whole family, including flight, transportation, transfer, and everything like that. So she was literally on in my phone like every day leaning towards the last 2 3 weeks of her trip, and she said, I don't sleep at night, I have anxiety, I'm wondering, am I missing something? I'm like, trust me, that's what I do for a living. Like everything is
Yeah.
planned, and you may have some challenge, but we will figure it out if it happens. A week before leaving, her flight got canceled. So can you imagine? Oh my God!
Yeah.
Did I make? Should I cancel it? Should I? I'm like, listen, it happens all the time.
Mhm.
Cancellation happen all the time. We will figure it out. So we figured out another flight. No problem at all. It was even 30 minutes less long, the distance between Miami and I believe it was Rome. So they left. I thought I was gonna hear from her a lot of times during the trip. Not one text. So I have a reminder when people come back, like so I can welcome them back and ask for feedback. So I called. She said, "Oh my God, that was painless. That was the most easy trip I ever made. Everything was like literally. I come out. I have the chauffeur who is there. We go to that place. I have the ticket for the museum. I have the restaurant booked. I mean, it reserved. Everything was so easy. And I'm like, I told you, I told you, it's gonna be like that.
Yeah.
And again, I can unforeseen situation may happen, but mostly than not, you will not have any issue. So again, she said, I worry so much for so long for this trip, and it was for nothing.
Yeah.
And so when we talked about this, I wanted to share another perspective than just business
Mhm.
about what it can be, for someone to stress about something. We're all different. We all have our
Mhm.
different, like nervosity or challenges. And yeah, when you want control and you don't have control for some situation, it can be freaky. But again, don't try to attract the negativity. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Worry about being different freaky, not freaky like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh, we got to delete that
Yeah.
out. But in all seriousness, I think we had an episode a couple Monday Mindsets ago where we talked about don't fake it till you make it, face it,
Mhm.
right? And this is kind of along that same vein. But I think one thing that I also offered this person as a piece of advice that really seemed to resonate with her, so maybe it'll resonate with some of our winners, is I read once about Beyonce and how Beyonce was, part of, that the group. The name is getting me. What was the female group?
Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child. Thank you, gosh. And major group, right? But Beyonce apparently was suffering from a little bit of an imposter syndrome and some stage fright, and she was having issues with that. So when you've heard of her persona, Sasha Fierce.
Yeah, yeah, I did that.
So the Sasha Fierce persona was, hey, I am going to adopt this persona while I'm on stage. That's going to give me the courage to perform and do my best. And I thought of that when I was talking to this person was calling me about her concerns. And I said, were you ever an actor in school or do a school play or anything like that? She's like, no, where are you going with this? And I'm like, well, just bear with me for a minute. But I said, if you're really at a point where you're at a roadblock and you're just not at that level where you can overcome some of these things that are inhibiting you, think like an actor thinks. Like when an actor plays, we both love the series Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
And you think about the actor who plays Hannibal in that TV series and how meticulous he was with everything. He's not like that in real life.
Mhm.
He's not eating people and creating all these weird ways of hurting people. But he adopted that persona and you believed he
Mhm.
was Hannibal. Like when I saw that, I thought I was seeing that person. And great actors do that.
Mhm.
And so I suggested to her, I said, think like an actor. When you go into this conversation, whether it's with an HR partner, with your manager, whoever it is, if if you think you need the courage, don't think of yourself as your name. Think of yourself as your name Fierce or whatever, because I was using the Sasha Fierce
Mhm.
type of analogy. And don't think about what you would normally do, because you're very accommodating. And a lot of times you will put yourself below someone else in the spirit of harmony, but actually you're doing yourself a disservice. And I said, but if you think about it like an actor and you play the role of a confident, assertive, not aggressive, but assertive person where you know your boundaries, you have your principles, and you're not going to subjugate yourself below that, give that a try. And that was also part of her conversation today that she texted me. She did that in a conversation that she had, and it worked. And that was, to your point, the 1% push. That was just that little nuanced difference in how she approached the conversation. And it helped her approach it in a very confident way, and also in a way that maintained her level of respect of what she needed to be in that situation.
No, 100%. I totally agree with that. And we have so many, thinking back about what you mentioned about the actors,
Mm-hmm.
we have some actors that every time we see them in another movie or another role, it's not possible to think about another. Like Harrison Ford for me was Indiana Jones, even
Mm-hmm.
though for some older people was probably Star Wars, or but Sean Connery with with James Bond.
Yeah.
He was James Bond for the longest time. So that's definitely something that I can relate. For me, Anthony Hopkins will always be Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
Like so I love the analogy because it's true. Sometimes you just have to put yourself in someone else, like lifestyle for a minute in order to get there and to surmount your fear. So I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that again, this can really applied to so many different things. I used to play basketball professionally back in Europe, and I was around athletes all the time. And for here in the US, when you look at the draft, for example, NFL, NBA draft, MLB, whatever your sport is, leading toward the draft, once all the pre-draft workouts are done, it's human being natural to think about it and to
Mm-hmm.
stress about it, but the decision is made.
Mm-hmm.
The decision is made. You did everything. Your resume is out there. They analyze what you did in college. They analyze what you did in the pre workouts.
Mm-hmm.
The week and a half after that, leading to the draft, a lot of athletes, they just literally sleep 2 hours a night because they're thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna drop, I'm gonna fail, I should have done that differently. So breathe out.
Yeah. Yeah.
The decision is made. You did what you should be doing, hopefully, and then the decision will be there. There is no change. You cannot make anything to change the decision. And I think it's important, again, on the sport level as well. Since we have Fanatic Friday, we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important that you stop projecting negativity, because again, the law of attraction may catch you, but otherwise, you will land where you're supposed to land.
Mm-hmm.
And you have sometimes some last minute change that may happen due to some injuries or due to some off field situation that came up, but that's on you.
Yeah. Right.
It's not something that you create the last 10 days before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's very important to work your mind. And we are human. I'm not saying that no, I don't care about anything, everything happened, what happened. We are human, but you need to train your mind on how to accept whatever things will be coming and be ready for something if something happen, any challenges or roadblock,
Mm-hmm.
but do not fear about all of them before they are there.
Right. Yeah. And when you said that, it made me think of another quote. Opportunity is when, how does it
Yeah,
go?
I think I know what you mean.
Luck or opportunity is when luck meets preparedness.
Mhm.
And that fosters opportunity. So one of the things, so I'll try to give a few tactical things people can maybe consider employing. If you're worried about a certain outcome, sometimes you can work and prepare different scenarios. So like if you're thinking, if I do X, Y, or Z may happen, great. Build that out, think through the implications, and prepare yourself and kind of reverse engineer what that may look like. Or you could say, well, maybe it's not X, maybe it's actually A. And so you prepare for A and then you B or C. So to kind of bring it more into light, like say, for example, you wanted to really ensure that you could get a certain promotion, right? Okay, well, one way to get a promotion is whatever your expectations are for your role, do exceedingly well for that, right?
Mhm.
And have that documented and showcase that, so that you can earn the promotion. But we know sometimes not everything is that simple. Sometimes there's politics involved. Sometimes it's about relationships. Sometimes you may be up against somebody who is just as qualified or even more qualified. So how do you get that competitive edge? Well, another scenario will be, okay, in addition to making sure I'm excelling at the things that I'm being tasked with to do, maybe, build on some relationships, from the people who are going to be making those decisions. And it's not about being manipulative. And
Mm.
I tell this to people who want to come to our business unit from other business units. I'm like, if you're coming from outside my business unit for a position of promotion, you have to actually be significantly better than somebody coming from within. Because what message am I sending to my team who's helping us collectively do better and say, well, you're good enough to get us to grow, but you're not good enough to grow
Mm.
within it? That's a
Mhm.
bad thing to do. Now, sometimes there are people who come from outside who, they are significantly different. They have a
Mhm.
different skill set that's needed for that role compared to somebody from within. So I'm not saying I never do that, but I'm very upfront. Like, and if the first time they're talking to me is in the interview or right before the interview, that's not enough of a relationship building. Like if I'm going to bring somebody from the outside, I need to feel comfortable with them,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's just my MO. I want to make sure, because there's things that we expect from our leaders and the group that I'm with, where there's certain principles and expectations. Well, I don't want to take a chance that somebody's just saying the right thing in an
Mhm.
interview. I want to get to know you over a period of time. That's just how I operate. So I'm not saying that's the right way or wrong way. I'm just saying if you're looking to get promoted, there's a way to do it in terms of tangible performance, and then there's also the relationship aspect. So work on both, and then you have both, and then an opportunity comes up, you just increase the likelihood you'll make it happen.
Love it. Always building your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Building your brain across different region, different units, BU. It's never a time waste.
Right.
Never a time waste. Because you want people to know you and know you for more than just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, numbers dictates a lot, but relationship are what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So 100% with you on this.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Great.
those are some practical tips. We talked about the actor, trying to play a different role to help. I think the other thing is people are too hard on themselves. Like they need to give yourself a little grace, because we've talked about this a lot on this show, and we'll continue to talk about it a lot. It's about the journey. It's
Hmm.
about continuous learning and development. Do not let the pursuit of perfection impede your progress, but be forgiving of yourself. Like I read something the other day, and it probably had something to do with the cruise, because I came back and I gained a little bit, not because I ate. That was the best I ever ate on a cruise, the healthiest.
Mm-hmm.
But I still came back heavier because of the darn drink package. So I came back a couple pounds heavier, and I was like, gosh darn it. And then I came across something, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm not going to be able to recite it exactly how it was said, but they were saying the difference
Oh
between
yeah.
diet and fitness is diet. When somebody messes up on the diet, it tends to, like a restrictive diet, it tends to have a cascading steamroll effect, and it sets them off course. Whereas if you're focused on fitness, we all have a bad day, but the next day you can get back right on track. And so instead of dwelling on, oh, I messed up on this diet, here I go again, and then boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, it starts cascading and you lose it. It was one day. One day, today's a new day. You can get back on it. And it just struck me when I read it, and I got back on the exercise regime, and now I'm lighter than what I was before I went to the cruise. But, it took work, and it also took not beating myself up over the fact that I didn't gain sugar weight. Well, I guess I did gain sugar weight, but not from desserts, from honeycomb.
Oh, I miss those.
I miss the honeycombs too. We got to find that somewhere around here.
Yeah. So winners, if you listen and you know how to make those honeycombs, let us know. We'll give you something special.
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna give shootout. Yeah. No, but I really hope, we really hope, winners, that this episode help you make you feel better about, if you are like that, you are like 99% of the population, but try to get a little bit better about avoiding to think negatively and to think about everything that could go wrong. If we can do that, we are succeeding in our message today, and we can move forward with it. We'll never get 100%. Someone can be 100%, without any feelings about negative things moving forward. But better you get at that, more productive you will get during your day, not thinking about everything that could go wrong, and more, closer to the perfection that we will never reach, but we will be able to have a better understanding of our journey.
Yeah. And stop being frozen by fear, worrying about things that may never happen. Take action and try different things. If something doesn't work, try something else. Going back, I'll close the loop on the Tim Ferriss thing, because I kind of started it with his illuminating Seneca's letter 13 to me through his podcast. But one of the things he also talks about is, instead of when you're thinking about embarking on something new or different, don't think about all the good things that could happen. Actually, think about what is the worst possible thing that could happen outside of death. That's right. But he's like, when you name the worst possible thing that could happen, and you start thinking about, okay, if this worst possible thing happened, what would be the implications of that? Would it mean an absolute failure? Or would it mean you have to regroup and pivot and maybe make some nuance and move something different? But he says, going through that exercise, and I tried that in a couple of scenarios, and it worked for me. It really helps take a little bit of the emotion out of it and really put forth a solution-oriented growth mindset around it, where it's like, okay, if this terrible thing happened, I still see a light. I still see a path forward. And maybe that path is a sharp right turn, or maybe it's just a nuance, or maybe it's like a curved path, but there's a path. And he goes, for him, he found it very empowering. And when I used it in those few situations, I also found it empowering, because when you can name it and you can think about it and you can plan for it and you have a plan that's going to overcome it, two things happen. It either never happens and you took the action, which is great, because now you're accelerating forward. Or if it does happen, you have a plan and you can address it and overcome it. So another tip, and hopefully you found this episode useful. But at the end of the day, winners, be bold, take action. Good things typically will follow. And if they don't, they're learning opportunities. And either way, you'll be better because of it. So thank you as always for listening. Please make sure you subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. Thanks again to Nick Menard and Associates at Dream Vacations for sponsoring today's episode. And look forward to seeing you Wednesday on Wanderlust Wednesday in a couple days. We'll have another fun-filled show for you then. So take care, winners.
Bye, winners.